Maya Collins woke up before sunrise like she did every morning. She loved the quiet time when the world was still sleeping and only the birds were awake to keep her company. The 12-year-old girl stretched and looked out her bedroom window at the Montana wilderness that surrounded their small research station. Her parents were scientists who studied rocks and old things buried in the ground. They had moved here 6 months ago so they could work on a big project about how the land had changed over millions of years. She got dressed quickly and grabbed her backpack. Inside were her camera, notebook, pencil, water bottle, and some snacks her mother had packed the night before. Maya always carried these things when she went exploring. Her father had taught her to always be prepared and to write down everything she saw. Her mother had shown her how to take good pictures and measure things properly. Both of her parents were very smart, but sometimes Maya thought they spent too much time looking at books and not enough time looking at the actual world around them. Scout was waiting by the back door. The big German Shepherd dog had been Maya's best friend for 3 years. Her parents had gotten Scout when they lived in California, and he had moved with them to Montana. Scout loved exploring just as much as Maya did. He was good at finding interesting things and even better at keeping Maya safe when they went far from home. Maya opened the door, and Scout ran outside ahead of her. The morning air was cold and fresh. She could see her breath making little clouds as she walked toward the forest. Her parents were still sleeping and would not wake up for another hour. Maya liked having this time to herself. She felt free, too. Go wherever she wanted and look at whatever caught her attention. Today, she decided to explore a canyon she had never been to before. She had seen it from the top of a hill last week, but had not had time to climb down into it. The canyon was about a mile from their research station, through thick pine trees and over several small streams. Scout ran ahead and then came back to make sure Maya was following the right path. The hike took 40 minutes. Maya stopped several times to take pictures of interesting rocks and plants. She wrote notes in her notebook about everything she saw. Her parents had taught her that good scientists always recorded their observations. Maya wanted to be a scientist when she grew up, but she was not sure what kind yet. Maybe she would study animals like Jane Goodall or explore space like the astronauts. She read about in books. When Maya reached the edge of the canyon, she could see it was deeper than she had thought. The walls were made of red and gray rock with strange patterns in them. At the bottom was a small stream that sparkled in the early morning sunlight. Scout found a safe path down the rocky slope, and Maya followed him carefully. She did not want to slip and hurt herself so far from home. The bottom of the canyon was like a hidden world. The walls rose high above her head and blocked most of the sky. It was quiet except for the sound of water running over stones and Scout sniffing around the base of the rocks. Maya walked along the stream taking pictures and making notes about the different types of stone she could see. That was when she noticed something very strange. On the north wall of the canyon, about 10 feet above the stream, was what looked like metal sticking out of the rock. But it was not the kind of metal Maya had ever seen before. It was dark silver with patterns of lines that seemed to go in and out of the rock face. The patterns reminded her of computer circuits, but much more complex and beautiful. Maya climbed up the rocky slope to get a closer look. Scout followed her and stood guard while she examined the strange object. When Maya got close enough to touch it, she could see that it was not really stuck in the rock. It looked more like the rock had grown around it over a very long time. The metal surface was smooth and had geometric shapes carved or somehow formed into it. The shapes were not like anything Maya had seen in her parents' books about ancient human civilizations. She took out her camera and started taking pictures from different angles. The metal seemed to change color slightly depending on how the light hit it. Sometimes it looked almost blue, and sometimes it had a green tint. Maya wrote detailed notes about its size and shape and location. She measured it as best she could and drew a sketch in her notebook. Then something amazing happened. When Maya reached out to touch the surface, the metal began to glow with a soft light. The light pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Scout whined and moved closer to Maya. He was not scared, but he could tell something unusual was happening. Maya was not scared either. She felt curious and excited. The glowing was beautiful and somehow friendly. Maya pressed her palm against the warm surface. The light grew brighter, and she could feel a gentle vibration through her hand. It was like the metal was alive and responding to her touch. When she moved her hand away, the light faded but did not disappear completely. A faint glow remained in the patterns on the surface. She spent 2 more hours at the canyon, taking pictures and making notes and trying different ways to make the metal respond. Every time she touched it, the same thing happened. The light would grow bright and then fade when she pulled away. Scout seemed to understand that this was important. He sat quietly and watched while Maya worked. When Maya finally hiked back home, her parents were eating breakfast and getting ready for their own day of research. She was excited to tell them about her discovery, but she also knew they would probably not believe her at first. Her father, Dr. Richard Collins, was a geologist who studied how rocks formed over millions of years. Her mother, Dr. Lisa Collins, was an archaeologist who dug up old things that ancient people had made. Both of them were very careful about making sure their observations were correct before they drew any conclusions. Maya sat down at the kitchen table and told her parents about the strange metal in the canyon. She showed them the pictures on her camera and read from her notes. Her father looked interested but skeptical. He said it was probably just an unusual mineral formation. Her mother agreed and suggested it might be part of an old mining operation from the 1800s, when people had dug for gold and silver in these mountains. But Maya knew what she had seen and felt. This was not just a weird rock or old mining equipment. This was something completely different and possibly very important. She decided she would go back to the canyon every day until she could convince her parents to come see it for themselves. Something told her this discovery was going to change everything. Maya went back to the canyon every day for a week. Each time she visited the strange metal object, it seemed to respond more strongly to her presence. The glowing patterns became brighter and more complex. She began to notice that different areas of the surface would light up when she moved her hands in certain ways. It was like the object was trying to communicate with her. On her 4th visit, Maya made an important discovery. When she pressed both hands against the surface, at the same time, a section of rock next to the metal began to glow as well. She realized that what she had found was not just a small piece of metal stuck in the canyon wall. It was part of something much larger that was buried behind tons of rock and dirt. Maya took hundreds of pictures and filled 3 notebooks with observations and sketches. She measured everything she could reach and tried to figure out how big the buried object might be. From what she could see, it looked like it could be the size of a house, or maybe even bigger. The geometric patterns seemed to follow a logical design that reminded her of blueprints for complex machines. Every evening, Maya showed her parents the new pictures and read them her notes. Dr. Richard Collins remained skeptical, but he was starting to become curious about his daughter's persistence. Dr. Lisa Collins was more interested because some of the patterns Maya had photographed looked similar to symbols found at ancient archaeological sites around the world. But neither parent was ready to believe that Maya had discovered something truly extraordinary. Everything changed on Maya's 7th visit to the canyon. While she was taking pictures, a military helicopter flew overhead and circled the area several times before flying away. That evening, 3 black SUVs drove up to the research station. Maya watched from her bedroom window as several people in suits got out and walked to the front door. The leader of the group was a tall woman with gray hair who introduced herself as Dr. Amanda Foster. She was the director of something called the Extraterrestrial Research Initiative. With her were Dr. Kevin Martinez, who studied languages, and Dr. Patricia Hayes, who was an expert in archaeology from other worlds. There was also a military officer named Colonel Jake Morrison, who wore a uniform with many medals and ribbons. Foster explained that satellite images had detected unusual energy readings coming from the canyon near their research station. The readings had started exactly 1 week ago, which was the same day Maya had first touched the metal object. Maya's parents were shocked to learn that their daughter's discovery was being monitored by the government. Maya was excited that finally some adults were taking her seriously, but she was also worried about what this meant. Colonel Morrison seemed particularly interested in whether the object could be dangerous. He asked many questions about whether Maya had felt sick or strange after touching it. Dr. Martinez wanted to know if the object had made any sounds or displayed any symbols that looked like writing. The next morning, the entire team went with Maya to the canyon. Scout came along as always and seemed nervous about all the new people. When they reached the buried object, Maya's parents saw it clearly for the first time. Dr. Richard Collins stared at the metal surface and admitted that it was definitely not any kind of natural rock formation. Dr. Lisa Collins examined the geometric patterns and confirmed that they did not match any known human civilization. Dr. Foster used several electronic devices to scan the object. The devices beeped and flashed with lights as they detected energy sources and unusual materials. Dr. Patricia Hayes took soil samples from around the metal to determine how long it had been buried. Her preliminary tests suggested it had been underground for thousands of years. When the adults tried to make the object respond the way Maya had described, nothing happened. Colonel Morrison pressed his hands against the surface exactly like Maya had shown them, but there was no glowing and no response. Dr. Martinez tried speaking to it in several different languages, but the metal remained dark and silent. Maya stepped forward and placed her palm on the surface. Immediately, the patterns began to glow with bright blue and green light. The adults stepped back in amazement as the light pulsed and spread across a much larger area than Maya had ever seen before. She moved her hands in different patterns, and the lights followed her movements like she was conducting an orchestra of glowing symbols. Dr. Foster realized that the object was somehow responding specifically to Maya. This was both fascinating and concerning. If a 12-year-old girl was the only person who could activate the alien technology, it created a complicated situation for the research team. Colonel Morrison suggested that Maya should be moved to a secure facility where she could be protected and studied. Dr. Martinez argued that separating Maya from the object might cause it to shut down permanently. Maya's parents were not happy about any suggestions that involved taking their daughter away from them. Dr. Richard Collins said he would not allow Maya to be treated like a laboratory experiment. Dr. Lisa Collins insisted that if Maya was going to be involved in studying the object, then her parents needed to be part of the research team as well. After much discussion, Dr. Foster agreed that the family could stay together, but that the canyon would need to be secured and monitored. Colonel Morrison arranged for soldiers to set up a perimeter around the area to keep other people away. Dr. Martinez began working on equipment that could record and analyze the light patterns that appeared when Maya interacted with the object. Over the next few days, Maya spent several hours each morning working with the research team at the canyon. She discovered that she could make different sections of the buried object respond by touching the surface in specific sequences. The patterns that appeared seemed to follow mathematical rules that Dr. Patricia Hayes recognized from her studies of ancient technologies. The most exciting breakthrough came when Maya suggested that instead of trying to force the object to reveal More of itself, they should try asking it politely. The adults thought this was a silly idea, but Maya insisted that the object felt like it was alive and intelligent. She pressed her hands against the surface and spoke out loud, asking if there was a way to see more of what's hidden underground. The response was immediate and dramatic. A section of the canyon wall that had looked like solid rock suddenly became transparent. Behind it, the team could see a vast chamber containing what was clearly some kind of spacecraft. The ship was enormous and beautiful, with smooth curves and surfaces, covered in the same geometric patterns they had seen on the exposed section. Dr. Foster contacted her superiors immediately to report that they had confirmed the discovery of an alien vessel. Colonel Morrison called for additional security forces and scientific equipment. Dior Martinez began documenting everything with video cameras and audio recorders. Dr. Patricia Hayes started planning how they might safely enter the ship to explore. Its interior. Maya stood quietly with Scout beside her, looking at the amazing sight of the alien spacecraft. She felt proud that her curiosity and persistence had led to such an important discovery. But she also felt a strange connection to the ship that she could not explain. When she looked at it, she had the feeling that someone or something inside was looking back at her. It was not a scary feeling, but it was very strong and very real. That evening, as the team made plans for the next phase of their research, Maya asked Dr. Foster what would happen next. Dr. Foster explained that studying the ship would probably take many years and might change everything humans knew about life in the universe. Maya nodded and said she hoped that whoever had built the ship would turn out to be friendly. She had a feeling that they were about to meet someone very important and very far from home. The entrance to the alien ship opened 3 days after Maya had asked it to reveal itself. She had been visiting the transparent wall every morning and placing her hands against its surface, while speaking quietly to whatever might be listening. Inside, on the 3rd day, a doorway simply appeared in the wall with no sound or visible mechanism. One moment there was solid barrier, and the next moment there was an opening large enough for several people to walk through side by side. Dr. Foster insisted that Colonel Morrison and 2 soldiers enter the ship first to make sure it was safe. They wore special suits with breathing equipment and carried devices that could detect dangerous radiation or poisonous gases. After an hour of careful exploration, they reported that the air inside was clean and the temperature was comfortable for humans. There were no signs of immediate danger, but the interior was unlike anything they had ever seen. Maya was the 5th person to enter the alien ship after the security team and Dr. Foster. Her parents stayed close beside her as they walked through the doorway into a world that defied human understanding. The walls curved in impossible ways and seemed to glow with their own soft light. The floors felt solid, but looked like they were made of flowing water that had somehow been frozen in place. Everything was much larger than human scale, as if the ship had been built for beings twice as tall as normal people. The first chamber they entered was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows far above their heads. Along the walls were panels covered with the same geometric patterns they had seen outside, but these were much more complex and detailed. When Maya approached one of the panels, it began to glow and display moving symbols that shifted and changed like living things. Dr. Martinez immediately began recording everything with his cameras, while trying to identify patterns that might represent language or mathematics. Scout stayed close to Maya, but seemed calm and curious rather than afraid. The dog sniffed at the strange surfaces and followed the team as they moved deeper into the ship. Maya noticed that Scout's behavior was different from when they encountered normal new places. Usually he would mark territory or investigate smells, but inside the ship he simply walked quietly as if he understood that this place required respect. The corridor they followed led to a central area that was clearly the heart of the ship. The center of this space stood several tall crystal structures that pulsed with internal light. The crystals were beautiful and seemed to contain swirling clouds of color that moved in patterns too complex for the human eye to follow completely. When Maya entered the chamber, all of the crystals began to glow more brightly, and the patterns of light inside them moved faster. Dr. Patricia Hayes recognized that the crystals were probably some kind of data storage system far more advanced than anything humans had developed. She began taking measurements and photographs, while Dr. Martinez worked on recording the light patterns to see if they contained information that could be decoded. Maya walked slowly around the crystal array, feeling drawn to touch them but wanting to be careful not to damage anything important. When Maya finally reached out and placed her palm against the surface of the largest crystal, the entire chamber filled with images. Holographic projections appeared in the air, showing scenes of planets and star systems and creatures, unlike anything in Earth's fossil record. The images moved like a documentary film, telling the story of a civilization that had traveled between worlds for thousands of years. Maya watched in amazement as the holograms showed her the history of the beings who had built this ship. They called themselves Zephyrians, and they were tall, graceful creatures with long limbs and large eyes that seemed to glow with intelligence and kindness. The Zephyrians had explored many worlds and made contact with dozens of different species. But they were not conquerors or invaders. They were scientists and philosophers who traveled through space to learn about the universe and share knowledge with other intelligent life forms. The holographic story revealed that this particular ship had been on a mission to explore the outer regions of their galaxy when a great catastrophe destroyed their home world. A massive star had exploded and sent waves of deadly radiation across several star systems, including the one where the Zephyrians lived. The crew of this ship and the crews of a few other vessels that had been traveling in distant space were the only survivors of their entire civilization. Maya felt tears in her eyes as she watched images of the Zephyrian homeworld being consumed by fire and radiation. The ship's crew had tried desperately to return home, but arrived too late to save anyone. They had searched for other survivors for many years before finally accepting that they were alone. With nowhere else to go, they had decided to find a suitable planet where they could land and wait for rescue that they knew would probably never come. The ship had detected Earth during the time when early humans were just beginning to develop agriculture and build the first cities. The Zephyrians had chosen to land in this remote canyon because their long-range scanners had indicated that the planet was inhabited by intelligent life that was still young and developing. They had not wanted to interfere with human evolution by making contact too early, but they had hoped that eventually humans would become advanced enough to find them and perhaps help them repair their ship. The most incredible revelation came when Maya learned that only one member of the ship's original crew was still alive. The others had died during the long centuries of waiting, despite their advanced life support technology. The survivor was the ship's navigator, a young Zephyrian named Cathara, who had volunteered to remain awake and maintain the ship's systems while the others entered deep sleep. Cathara had been alone for over 12,000 Earth years, keeping watch and hoping that someday someone would find them. Maya could see Cathara in the holographic images. She appeared to be young for her species, with bright eyes and a gentle expression that reminded Maya of teachers who truly cared about their students. Cathara had spent the long millennia studying human civilization through the ship's sensors, and had even found ways to occasionally influence human development by sending inspiration through dreams to selected individuals throughout history. Martinez was frantically taking notes as the holograms revealed that many of humanity's greatest scientific and artistic achievements had been subtly guided by Cathara's gentle influence. She had inspired mathematicians and inventors and artists by sharing fragments of Zephyrian knowledge through dreams and sudden insights. Leonardo da Vinci's flying machine designs had been influenced by images of Zephyrian aircraft. Marie Curie's understanding of radiation had been enhanced by carefully planted insights about atomic structure. The holographic presentation concluded with a message from Cathara directly to whoever might eventually find the ship. She explained that she was currently in a deep healing sleep, trying to recover from the effects of staying awake too long. Her life support systems were failing, and she could not survive much longer without help. But she had programmed the ship to respond to any intelligent being who approached with curiosity rather than aggression. She had specifically designed the activation sequence to work best with young minds that had not yet been trained to disbelieve in impossible things. Maya realized that Cathara had been waiting specifically for someone like her. The ship had been programmed to recognize the brainwave patterns of youth and wonder that adults often lost as they grew older. This was why the research team could not activate the ship's systems, but Maya could make them respond easily. Cathara had known that first contact with humanity should come through someone who still believed in magic and adventure rather than through military leaders or suspicious scientists. As the holograms faded, Maya felt a deep connection to the lonely alien who had waited so long for rescue. She pressed both hands against the crystal and spoke aloud, telling Cathara that she was not alone anymore. Humans had found her, and they wanted to help. Maya promised that they would do everything possible to save Cathara's life and maybe even help her find other Zephyrian survivors if any existed. The crystal pulsed with warm light, and Maya felt a gentle presence touch her mind. For just a moment, she could sense Cathara's thoughts and emotions. The alien navigator was weak and tired, but filled with hope and gratitude that her long wait was finally over. Maya knew that saving Cathara would be the most important thing she would ever do in her life. News of the alien ship discovery leaked to the media exactly 3 weeks after Maya first entered the vessel. Despite Colonel Morrison's security measures and Dr. Foster's attempts to keep the project classified, someone had taken pictures with a long-range camera and sold them to a television news network. Within hours, every major news organization in the world was reporting on the discovery of an extraterrestrial spacecraft in rural Montana. Maya woke up on a Tuesday morning to find dozens of helicopters circling overhead and hundreds of reporters camped outside the security perimeter around the canyon. Her parents were upset and worried about how the attention would affect their daughter and their ability to continue working with Cathara. Dr. Foster was furious about the security breach, and Colonel Morrison was dealing with orders from Washington to completely lock down the site. The media circus brought unwanted attention from many different groups. Religious leaders argued about what the discovery meant for human beliefs about creation and the meaning of life. Politicians demanded access to the alien technology for their own countries. Military officials from around the world wanted to study the ship's advanced systems. Scientists who had been excluded from the research team complained loudly about being left out of the most important discovery in human history. 3 days after the news broke, a convoy of military vehicles arrived at the canyon carrying General Bradley Stevens, who outranked Colonel Morrison and had orders to take control of the entire operation. General Stevens was a tough man who had spent his career dealing with threats to national security. He viewed the alien ship as a potential weapon that could give America a huge advantage over its enemies if the technology could be understood and copied. General Stevens immediately announced that the ship would be moved to Area 51 in Nevada, where it could be studied in a secure facility away from media attention and foreign spies. He also declared that Maya would need to be relocated to the same facility so she could continue to operate the ship's systems under proper supervision. Maya's parents were told they could visit their daughter on weekends, but would not be allowed to live at the military base. Maya was horrified by this plan. She had been working with Cathara through the crystal interface almost every day and had learned that the alien navigator's life support systems were deeply integrated with the ship's position in the canyon. Moving the ship would require shutting down power to many critical systems, and would probably kill Cathara before the relocation could be completed. Maya tried to explain this to General Stevens, but he dismissed her concerns as the imagination of a child who did not understand adult responsibilities. Dr. Foster and her research team supported Maya's objections, but General Stevens had orders from the highest levels of government and the authority to override their protests. He gave them 48 hours to prepare the ship for transport and warned that anyone who interfered with the military operation would be arrested and charged with treason. Maya felt helpless and desperate as she watched soldiers preparing equipment to cut the ship free from the canyon walls. That evening, Maya snuck away from the research camp and made her way to the ship's entrance. Scout followed her as always, and they entered the crystal chamber where Maya had been communicating with Cathara. Through their mental connection, Maya could feel that the alien navigator was becoming weaker as the military preparations disrupted the ship's power systems. Cathara was trying to stay alive long enough to share something very important with Maya before it was too late. Maya placed her hands on the central crystal and opened her mind to receive Cathara's final message. The alien navigator showed her images of a hidden chamber deep in the ship that contained the most precious treasure of Zephyrian civilization. It was a vast database containing thousands of years of scientific knowledge, philosophical wisdom, and artistic achievements that could advance human development by centuries. The database included cures for diseases, solutions to environmental problems, and technologies for clean energy and space travel. But Cathara explained that this knowledge came with a test. The Zephyrians had encountered many intelligent species during their explorations and had learned that advanced technology could either elevate a civilization or destroy it, depending on how it was used. Some species had used Zephyrian gifts to solve their problems and create peaceful, prosperous societies. Others had turned the same gifts into weapons and had destroyed themselves within a few generations. The database would only activate if humanity could demonstrate three qualities that the Zephyrians valued above all others. The first was curiosity over conquest, meaning that humans had to approach the knowledge with a desire to learn and explore rather than to dominate and control. The second was cooperation over competition, meaning that the benefits had to be shared among all people rather than hoarded by a few powerful nations. The third was compassion over control, meaning that the technology had to be used to help and heal rather than to force others to submit. Maya realized that General Stevens's plan to move the ship to a secret military base and use its technology to gain advantage over other countries was exactly the wrong approach. It represented conquest over curiosity, competition over cooperation, and control over compassion. If the ship was moved and studied in isolation by military scientists, the database would remain locked and humanity would lose its greatest opportunity for advancement. Cathara showed Maya one more crucial piece of information. During her 12,000 years of waiting, the alien navigator had been monitoring human development and had identified specific individuals throughout history who embodied the qualities the Zephyrians valued. She had been subtly guiding human progress by inspiring these special people with dreams and insights that helped them make important discoveries and create beautiful works of art. Maya learned that she was the latest in this long line of chosen humans. Her curiosity, her willingness to cooperate with others, and her natural compassion for Cathara's loneliness had marked her as someone who could help humanity pass the Zephyrian test. But Maya was still just a 12-year-old girl, and she would need help from adults who shared her values if she was going to save both Cathara and the alien database. The next morning, Maya asked Dr. Foster to arrange a video conference call with world leaders. She said she had an important message from Cathara that could change the future of human civilization. D.R. Foster was skeptical, but agreed to contact the United Nations and request an emergency session. Several major world leaders, including the American president, the Chinese premier, the Russian president, and the leaders of the European Union, agreed to listen to what Maya had to say. Maya stood in the crystal chamber with her hands on the main interface while cameras broadcast her image to government offices around the world. She spoke simply and directly, telling the world leaders about Cathara's long wait and the test that humanity would have to pass to receive the Zephyrian knowledge. She explained that the database would only unlock if all major nations agreed to share the alien technology freely and use it to solve problems rather than gain military advantages. The response was immediate and heated. Some leaders accused Maya of being coached by foreign agents trying to steal American technology. Others argued that their own countries deserved special access to the alien gifts because of their scientific achievements or military power. Few leaders seemed genuinely interested in Maya's message, but were worried about trusting other nations to use the technology responsibly. Maya listened to the arguments with growing sadness. She could feel Cathara's presence becoming weaker as the ship's systems continued to be disrupted by the military preparations. Time was running out, and the adult leaders seemed more interested in fighting over the alien gifts than in working together to earn them. Maya realized that she would have to find a way to show humanity that cooperation was possible, even if their governments could not agree. That evening, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She contacted several news organizations and invited them to broadcast live from inside the ship the next morning. She said she would demonstrate the alien technology and explain exactly what humanity would need to do to prove they deserved the Zephyrian database. Maya's parents tried to stop her, but she convinced them that this was the only way to save Cathara and give humanity a chance to pass the test. General Stevens was furious when he learned about Maya's plan, but he could not stop the broadcast without creating an international incident. The whole world would be watching, and any attempt to silence a 12-year-old girl would make America look like it was trying to hide something important. Maya had cleverly forced the situation into the open, where public opinion, rather than military force, would determine what happened next. Maya stood in the crystal chamber at exactly 9:00 in the morning while television cameras from around the world broadcast her image to over 2 billion people. She wore her favorite blue jeans and a simple white t-shirt because she wanted to look like a normal kid rather than some kind of special ambassador. Scout sat beside her, looking calm and protective as always. Maya's parents stood nearby with Dr. Foster and the rest of the research team, watching nervously as their daughter prepared to address the entire planet. Maya placed her hands on the central crystal and felt Cathara's presence flowing into her mind. The alien navigator was very weak, but she was using her remaining strength to help Maya communicate with humanity. The crystal began to glow with beautiful patterns of light that pulsed in rhythm with Maya's heartbeat. Around the chamber, holographic images appeared showing scenes from Cathara's long watch over human civilization. Maya spoke in a clear, steady voice that carried the wisdom of someone much older than 12 years. She told the watching world about HFY Story and the test that humanity would have to pass to receive the Zephyrian database. She explained that the alien knowledge could solve most of the problems that caused suffering on Earth, including hunger, disease, pollution, and war. But the technology would only unlock if humans could prove they had learned to work together instead of fighting over resources and power. Holographic displays showed images of the database contents. There were designs for machines that could clean the oceans and the atmosphere. There were medical techniques that could cure cancer and regenerate damaged organs. There were energy systems that could provide unlimited clean power without harming the environment. There were transportation technologies that could carry humans to other star systems to explore and colonize new worlds. Maya explained that Kethara had been secretly helping human development for thousands of years by inspiring scientists, artists, and inventors with dreams and insights. She showed the watching world how Leonardo da Vinci's flying machines had been influenced by Zephyrian aircraft designs. She revealed how Marie Curie's research into radioactivity had been guided by alien understanding of atomic structure. She demonstrated how Albert Einstein's theories about space and time had been subtly enhanced by Zephyrian mathematics. The most powerful moment came when Maya asked Kethara to show herself to the human race. The largest crystal in the chamber began to glow with intense light, and a holographic figure appeared next to Maya. Kethara was tall and graceful, with long limbs and large eyes that seemed to hold infinite kindness and wisdom. She looked weak and tired from her long vigil, but her presence radiated peace and benevolence. Kethara spoke through Maya, translating her thoughts into words that humans could understand. She told the world that the Zephyrians had encountered many intelligent species during their travels through the galaxy. Some had passed the test of cooperation and had gone on to join a peaceful alliance of civilizations that shared knowledge and explored the universe together. Others had failed the test and had destroyed themselves with the same technologies that could have saved them. Maya felt tears streaming down her face as Kethara shared her deepest hope that humanity would choose cooperation over conflict. The alien navigator had spent 12,000 years watching human civilization develop and had seen both the best and worst of human nature. She had witnessed wars and genocide and environmental destruction, but she had also seen acts of incredible courage, compassion, and creativity. Kethara believed that humans had the potential to become one of the galaxy's great civilizations if they could learn to work together. The broadcast continued for 2 hours as Maya answered questions from world leaders and explained exactly what humanity would need to do to pass the test. Every major nation would have to agree in writing to share the alien technology freely with all other countries. The knowledge would be used only for peaceful purposes, and any attempt to weaponize the technology would cause the database to lock permanently. All nations would work together to solve global problems, like climate change and poverty, using the Zephyrian gifts. Some world leaders immediately rejected these conditions. The North Korean dictator declared that his country would never agree to share advanced technology with its enemies. Several military generals argued that giving alien weapons to hostile nations would threaten world security. A few politicians claimed that their countries deserved special privileges because they had contributed more to human progress than others. But Maya had allies she had not expected. D.R. Foster and her research team supported Maya's proposal and provided scientific evidence that cooperation was the only practical approach. Colonel Morrison surprised everyone by breaking ranks with his military superiors and announcing that he believed Maya was right about the importance of unity. Many religious leaders from different faiths spoke in favor of the plan, saying that sharing the alien gifts would fulfill their highest spiritual values. The most important support came from ordinary people around the world who had watched Maya's broadcast and been inspired by her message. Students organized demonstrations demanding that their governments accept the alien test. Scientists published open letters explaining why global cooperation was essential for using advanced technology safely. Artists and writers created works celebrating the possibility of a peaceful future enabled by Zephyrian knowledge. Maya spent the next week traveling to the United Nations headquarters in New York, where she addressed the General Assembly in person. She stood at the podium where world leaders normally spoke and repeated her simple message about the choice facing humanity. The alien database contained the solutions to most human problems, but it would only unlock if the world's nations could prove they had learned to work together instead of fighting over resources. Secretary General Chan Lu became Maya's strongest supporter at the United Nations. He organized private meetings between world leaders and helped negotiate compromises on the most difficult issues. The Chinese premier agreed to share the technology if America would do the same. The Russian president demanded guarantees that the alien knowledge would not be used against his country. The European Union leaders worked to create legal frameworks for international cooperation. The final vote took place exactly 1 month after Maya's first global broadcast. Representatives from 193 countries gathered in the General Assembly Hall to decide humanity's future. Maya sat in the gallery with her parents and Scout watching as each nation announced its decision. The vote had to be unanimous for the test to be passed, and several countries waited until the very end to announce their positions. When the final vote was counted, the result was 193 in favor and 0 opposed. Every nation on Earth had agreed to accept the Zephyrian test and work together to use the alien technology for peaceful purposes. Maya felt Cathara's joy flowing through their mental connection as the alien navigator realized that her long wait had finally ended successfully. Maya returned to the ship with representatives from every nation following behind her. She placed her hands on the central crystal and spoke the words that Cathara had taught her. The database activation sequence required not just unanimous agreement, but also a demonstration of genuine unity. Maya invited the world representatives to join hands in a circle around the crystal chamber while she completed the unlock process. The moment Maya spoke the final activation phrase, the entire ship filled with brilliant light. Every crystal in the chamber began glowing and projecting holographic displays showing the contents of the Zephyrian database. The alien knowledge flowed into human computer systems around the world as universities and research centers gained access to technologies that would transform civilization. Cathara's life support systems stabilized as the ship's power was restored to full capacity. The alien navigator began the long process of healing from her 12,000-year vigil with the help of medical techniques that humans were already learning from the database. Maya became Earth's first official ambassador to galactic civilization and began studying with Cathara to prepare for eventual contact with other alien species. The changes began immediately as human scientists used Zephyrian clean energy technology to shut down polluting power plants and replace them with systems that generated unlimited electricity from quantum fluctuations. Medical researchers applied alien healing techniques to eliminate diseases that had plagued humanity for thousands of years. Agricultural specialists used Zephyrian biological knowledge to develop crops that could grow in any climate and provide perfect nutrition. Maya continued visiting Cathara every day as the alien navigator shared more stories about the galaxy and the many civilizations that humans would eventually meet. Scout had adopted Cathara as part of his pack and would sit patiently during their long conversations. Maya's parents became experts in human-alien relations and helped establish protocols for future contact with other species. The most important change was not technological but social. Humanity had proven that they could work together when faced with a challenge that required unity. The experience of passing the Zephyrian test had created new bonds of cooperation between nations that had been enemies for generations. Maya had shown